Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Triangle Offense. I'm Munish, and as always, I'm joined by Nishant. We are back after a long break. I think it was 10 days, and we stopped after before the All Star game. We took a personal break for ourselves, but we're back. Nothing much has changed, has it, in the last 1 week, except that a few trades. Not a few, but I think the one big major trade was Blake Griffin going to the Nets.
Yeah.
Did you see that coming? I knew he did a buyout of his contract, which meant that he was moving. Did you see the Nets going in for him?
Yeah. Nets were, I think we discussed this also. Nets were one of the prime contenders because
Yeah.
they're one of the first names that come to mind when you think of teams that desperately need a big. And there are a bunch of these, right? Then that's it's what we were lamenting is that the league is so loaded with guards that a quality big that can do anything at all, but that can also potentially score is such a scarcity in the league, as are wings. But yeah, I was thinking it's going to be either the Nets, maybe the Lakers make a play for him because they had their own troubles, but they went another way. And he had to go. The second it was a buyout, you knew Blake Griffin was getting a deal because then teams are free to sign him on a veteran minimum or one of those basic contracts rather than shelling out $20 million to get him. So not too surprised. Nets probably wouldn't have been my first pick, my favorite to sign him, but I'm not surprised at all.
Now, the Nets, they won 9 of the last 10 games, and they've been balling it out. And at this moment, if you had to pick a favorite, I think it would be the Nets for most
for
of
sure.
us, right?
Yeah.
But they missed one big guy in the team. The DeAndre Jordan at center was not really working out. Now Blake Griffin coming in as a number 4, he'll be a backup for probably Kevin Durant or maybe play off as a 5 as well.
Both, yeah. I think it's more of a
Yeah.
five thing.
So does it make Nets really stronger than they were already, or do you think Blake Griffin is way past his prime? Now he's not been on a
Yeah.
contending team since Chris Paul was at the Clippers, and he was having this high flying seasons
Yeah.
again and again. A couple of years back, he did take Detroit Pistons to the playoffs, but it was an entirely different Blake Griffin. He was shooting threes at 35%.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the Blake Griffin we know. This year, he is yet to make a dunk. So it's not the same Blake Griffin. So do you think he adds any value to the Nets?
He's actually yet to make a dunk since 2019. It's been that long since just since he dunked the ball, 2019. Yeah, look, I was a big Blake Griffin fan. Supporting the Lakers, I didn't have too much love for Clippers. Not that I ever cared much for the Clippers. They weren't a team. Elton Brand was their best player once upon a time, right? So they weren't really very. Elton Brand of the Process fame at Philadelphia, he was their best player once upon a time, right? So they didn't figure high on anyone's radar until Lob City Clippers came along. They had that whole racism fiasco with their Donald Sterling, the owner, and then he got booted out. In came Steve Ballmer. I hear he has some money, so they put together a good team. And here comes the Lob City Clippers. There was Chris Paul, there was DeAndre Jordan. So this is a reunion of sorts, and a bunch of other role players that really made them a thrilling team to watch. But it was mainly these three: Blake, DeAndre Jordan, and Chris Paul. That version of Blake Griffin is one of the most awe-inspiring athletes you'll ever see. He's right up there with, I wish that could have gone on for a little longer level, all-time greats in that list, which is Derrick Rose, Blake Griffin, people who touched incredible peaks, Grant Hill even, and then they were ravaged by injuries and they were never the same. I don't think I've heard a fair few, like ESPN did a bit on First Take where they were saying Blake Griffin probably played the way he did in Detroit because he wasn't motivated. It was a bum team, it was going nowhere, they were always tanking, they didn't really have any ambition. I don't think that's true. You maybe didn't put in 100% of effort, but I find it hard to believe that you didn't dunk a ball in donkey's ears. That can't be down to when you're one of the most high-flying players ever to play basketball. You're like a 6'11 Zion Williamson, and then you don't dunk at all in 2 years in whatever few games you've played. That makes no sense. So I'm not buying that. I think he's well past his prime. The Blake Griffin that started shooting threes, that metamorphosed into this, it was almost a LaMarcus Aldridge kind of game that he had developed over time, right? And that's not a sign of a demotivated player. A demotivated player does not put in that kind of effort to develop a jump shot where he had none a few years ago. That's the sign of somebody who has realized he doesn't have the hops anymore doesn't have that explosive athleticism, and so he has to find other ways to stay relevant. I don't think if that's the kind of offense he provides, the Nets are going to be like, no, thank you, because they've got. I don't think the Nets need anyone to help out in any way on
Absolutely not.
offense, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so I think he's going to be more of a come in, fill minutes for DeAndre Jordan, bump shoulders, get rough in the paint, grab rebounds, but most critically rebounds, and anything else they get from him in terms of points production is a bonus. I don't think he's a game changer. I don't think he makes them too much stronger than they already are. I'll be proven wrong only and only if Blake Griffin turns into at least a part of the old Blake Griffin.
So, do you think it was kind of puzzling that the Nets still went in for him? Because when you shoot 28% from three, you don't dunk the ball anymore. What are you actually getting?
Size. That's pretty much all the Nets paid for. You just get a big guy that can. Look, you get size, you get experience, you get somebody who stays calm under pressure. It's not always a given. Like if you have somebody like a James Wiseman, who, it's a bad comparison. He's an upper echelon talent, so he might get a lot of things together in the playoffs. But as things get tighter and tighter in the playoffs, experience counts. The ability to say I've been there and I know how this can go badly, and sometimes I know how this can go right. These things matter a lot. So I think he largely brings in that. But it's mostly just a once upon a time top tier talent who can still bump bodies, who still has size and strength, who still may not have the hops, but he can still be a bit of a nuisance for the attackers around the rim. And most importantly, I think he can still grab some boards, and they badly need somebody that can rebound in DeAndre Jordan's absence. I think DeAndre Jordan's come along rather nicely since he was lambasted. Say around, I want to say end of Jan was when we started seeing some sort of an uprising in form, right? Where you saw at least like a 12, 14 points, 10, 11 rebound games from him, and consistently so. That's what they need from him. If he can do that, and if Blake Griffin can be even a modicum of a backup, then I think they're well set. But I don't think this trade elevates the Nets too much. I think it's nice. It's a good move.
Right, and now, like I said, the Nets have won 9 of the last 10, and including today's game, they won 10 of the last 11. Now, this is without Kevin Durant being in the team. James Harden is playing, I would say, like an MVP.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving is getting 30 plus points every single game. James Harden is almost getting a triple-double every single game. He's the one grabbing the rebounds, not leaving anything for DeAndre Jordan. And now you added Blake Griffin, who doesn't really add much. But do you think they're done shopping, or do you think there is still a piece left for the Nets to be the absolute favorites?
I think the Nets right now would do whatever it takes to get a chip. They don't care what you say. They don't care if you say you stacked the deck, you cheated your way to a title, you purchased your way to a title. We've seen this in football. In comes an influential ownership group, and they're going to do anything for their prestige. They want their brand to be associated with winning, and then they'll do their thing on the business side. And for that to happen, it looks like there's no price that's too high for the Brooklyn Nets. They're right now second in the luxury tax table behind Golden State Warriors. So if anything, they're going to look at Golden State probably and think this is a proven model where you put talent on the court, you don't give a damn about luxury tax, and you can build a profitable business. It's possible. You can maybe maximize your margins by winning one game less in a season, and I'm talking about the NBA Finals, but putting together a good team that excites fans, sure. But this is a year where there are no fans anyway, so it's not like your stadium attendance counts for anything. I think they'll go. I think they'll go all the way. I wouldn't be surprised if they break the bank further with another player, and even if they surpass Golden State in luxury tax, I think they'll be willing to do it if a right deal comes along. Will it be for somebody like a Drummond? I don't think so. I think they're okay in the bigs. Maybe they want to load up on shooters now, more backup that can come off the bench and contribute, just to preserve their superstars a little more. But I think there's a right move to be made. They'll make it, but otherwise they're set. They needed a big man. They got Blake Griffin. Was he the best man available in the market? Maybe, maybe not. But if they feel he's good enough, he's good enough.
Should KD missing so many games be a concern for them? I know that James Harden is kind of covering up for it entirely, but KD has not played in 18 months. He came back this season, started off really well. He was in fact in one of our MVP conversations as well, if I remember rightly. Missed the All-Star game, was the captain, though I don't know how that works, but he's not played since 1 month now.
Yeah.
So is that kind of concerning for Brooklyn Nets, or they've got it figured? Like they know that they just need to make the top four, top
Yeah.
eight, probably even, and they know that their actual team is set for the playoffs because KD will be back, and then they're unbeatable.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on this. One, there's a bit of a parallel that can be drawn between the two 6'11" guys that are out injured right now. AD on the Lakers and KD on, I did not mean for that to rhyme, on the Brooklyn Nets. Um, and I think in both cases, the right thing to do for different reasons is give them as much time off as they need, as long as they come back sometime before the playoffs or even at the start of the playoffs. But fully fit, you're good. For the Lakers, it's because this is a largely set core, and I know they've changed a lot of pieces around that core, but the core is set. You have a lot of stability. You have, be it Jared Dudley, who's kind of like the spirit of the locker room guy, or your number one LeBron, or some of your supporting pieces like Caruso, like Kuzma, like KCP. All of these guys have been through this journey already last year, and they continue. So there is that continuity. Yes, you'll have to integrate Schroeder and Harrell and all of the other guys that they brought in, Wes Matthews. But because that core is intact and because they're the defending champs, they don't have to solve afresh for team chemistry issues when AD comes back.
Right.
So they're okay as long as he comes back in the playoffs. And that should be because remember last year, and AD does this every year. He misses a bunch of games every year. He's not the most fittest person, which is why people were surprised that he lasted till the end of the season. But what people should remember is he did get a 4 or 5 month hiatus in between because of the lockdown.
Right.
That was a huge boon for AD to recover and not play games. So they've got to kind of recreate a version of that this season, looks like, and not rush him back. And hey, I'm good if it's a repeat of last season in the postseason. I'm good if he doesn't play the regular season. It's what Kawhi's been doing for years. So that's AD. KD, similar thing, different justification. The Brooklyn Nets can top the East even without KD. That's how good they are. They can top the conference without KD. They don't even need KD to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now then the question is, okay, if he comes back around the playoffs, just before, just after start of playoffs, whatever. First round it's the East. I mean, who cares? They'll breeze through. What about team chemistry? And you're going to want to bring up the Clippers from last season. They did this all year. They barely had like 10 or 12 games where their entire first pref squad played.
Mm-hmm.
And they fell apart in the postseason. But couple of reasons or more maybe why it's not the same thing. One, the Clippers had a bunch of players who just did not cope well with life in the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Players like Harden, etc., I wouldn't expect them to have any such problem. And Harden was there in the bubble last year. I thought he played just fine. Lakers were just the better team in that series.
Yeah.
So and Kyrie inside outside the bubble, he has his own bubble, man. He doesn't care about any of this. So Kyrie is good. I don't think they have that problem. The second problem that they had, and that was probably a little more pronounced in the Clippers, was they had a core team that had been there for a while. That was already a 46-50 win team before they plonked these two superstars into that team. And then it felt like everything pivoted to revolving around those two superstars. Right. They could skip practice when they wanted, but the rest of the team had to show up. All of these little things that irritate players around you, and that contributes to the downfall of your team chemistry. We've not heard any such story from Brooklyn outside of Kyrie's antics, which are that's always the case. We've not really heard of any locker room issues in Brooklyn. I think Kevin Durant is the clear leader there, and I think he's doing a great job with James Harden. I'm sure that will only elevate.
Right.
And none of these superstars are. Kyrie has some eccentricities, but none of these guys are cut corners on effort kind of superstars. They all put in the work. When they're fit, they put in the grind. I don't think Harden will do here what he did in Houston, which was go off to strip clubs and all of that. If he does, then they've got bigger issues than Kevin Durant not coming back. So all of the reasons that contributed to the Clippers not being able to just get together as a team and pull through, get over the line, I don't think will apply to the Brooklyn Nets. So if none of these are a factor, if Kevin Durant, my assumption, and I think it's the right one, is that if Kevin Durant can come back, he's plug and play. He comes into this and he plays. Then as a GM, you're going to say, give him as much rest as he wants, because we've seen this before. We know how it ends if you rush him back. They did that in the NBA Finals in Golden State, and they wrecked a year of his career.
Right.
So preserve Kevin Durant. He's already proven that he's playing like he didn't skip a day of basketball. I don't think if that's the case after like a 14-month hiatus, I don't think a 3-month break is gonna really do a great deal. And 3 months is a lot, right? So I'm not worried at all. I don't think Brooklyn Nets fans should be worried. Only thing they should be worried about is how do they improve their defense just enough to get to the finals and then take it from there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think also the on-field or off-field chemistry between Kyrie and KD and Harden and KD, both those relationships help as well, so that it won't feel like KD is coming in and disrupting that team chemistry. I don't think that will happen. You saw how James Harden easily fit into this team when he came in. You saw how KD and Kyrie started playing together like they've always have been. So I think, I think Brooklyn Nets are. If I had to pick the top team right now, I would pick them even over the 76ers. I would pick them even over Utah Jazz. I would pick them over LA Lakers. I think Brooklyn Nets are strong favorites, regardless of what they had going on earlier in the season with their bad defense and all of that. I think right now they're showing what they can do.
Yeah, they certainly look like it. And hey, one small point. All those players that got pissed off in the Clippers because of Kawhi and PG getting preferential treatment, being late to flights, a lot of those guys were there before, right? So they would have felt like it's their team, and then these guys come in and just completely take over. People understand superstars get preferential treatment, but this was, pushing the limit. In Brooklyn, there's not really much scope for that to happen because most of the guys that would have gotten pissed off because they did make the playoffs without any of these folks are all shipped out. Like, there's nobody, there's hardly anyone there that knew what life was before these two. So I think they're good. That's another reason why I'm okay with Durant not being around for a while.
Yeah, but would you agree that Brooklyn Nets are the strongest team or the
for sure
favorites at this moment?
Yeah, without question. As teams are currently presently constructed, yes. AD coming back would change a lot. Jrue back in Milwaukee makes them interesting. Although Milwaukee, until they actually go to the finals, I think it would be fair to assume they won't, and fair to assume at some point they're gonna come undone. But interesting stuff happening there. Embiid's injury is not serious, so it's not. It's not like that's it, shut the league down like it was when KD was in Golden State. It's more, sure, they're the strongest team right now, but a lot can happen from now till the start of the playoffs.
Alright, so that was the Brooklyn Nets. We'll continue to analyze them and see how they fare. I think they've been doing really well. And New York Knicks actually gave them quite a run today. It was a close game. That's a team that we'll talk about soon. But that's all for today's episode. It was nice talking basketball after a break.
Yeah, man.
And we'll continue to do this. See you tomorrow.
Sure thing. Cheers.